What the heck is an action over exclusion or an injury to employee exclusion? And why is everyone asking you about it? Well, here in New York, those exclusions are super important. In fact, they affect New York contractors every single day. And those exclusions or inclusions are the reason that New York general contractors and contractors all across the board, trade contractors, etc., pay approximately 10 times what contractors in other states pay for their general liability insurance. In short, these exclusions exclude coverage for any sort of employee injury. Well, hold on. You're probably thinking, I've got workers' comp for that. Who cares if I have an injury to employee exclusion on my policy? Well, here in New York, workers' comp is not going to be enough. We have a very old law that states if one of your employees falls from heights. Now, that is a very loose, that can be used for someone who gets up on a stepladder. It can also be used for someone who climbs on a chair or falls down a set of stairs. So, a little bit of broad wording there. But at the end of the day, if it is a fall from heights injury, your workers' comp is not going to be the only means that your employee can collect money from. And I gotta tell you, these action over or injury to employee lawsuits tend to be very expensive, oftentimes paying out policy limits. So if you have $1 million policy, they're probably gonna get $1 million. If you have an umbrella that includes action over, they might get some of that too. At the end of the day, these lawsuits are some of the most expensive here in the state of New York. So having this coverage is super important. But unfortunately, it's also pretty expensive. So how expensive is it? Well, that really depends, but I'm going to talk specifically to New York City since that's where a lot of our people are from. New York City, a policy including action over generally starts around $25,000. Now, there is some slight variance there, but that's kind of a baseline. Now, the reason it is so expensive is because those lawsuits pay out at such extraordinary settlements. So what happens if you're being asked by a general contractor to provide a policy that includes action over? Well, you better get ready to pay more money, because the reason you're watching this video is probably because your insurance was rejected for not having action over coverage. And I can just tell you, if you're with a company and you're paying $2,000, $3,000, even $4,000, you probably 99.9999% of the time do not have action over coverage if you're working here in New York. Now that is another thing. A lot of policies, if you're working outside of New York, like let's say you're based in New Jersey or based in Connecticut, if you're trying to cross over and work in New York, your policy might not just have an action over exclusion, it could in fact exclude the entire state of New York because of action over. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'm sorry to have scared you, but those increases are realistic. At the end of the day, those minimum premiums, they suck. But how can you afford it? Well, oftentimes you can renegotiate your bid with the general contractor, developer, etc., who's ever requiring you to get this insurance policy. That being said, you can't always negotiate the increase in premium with that party. But there is something else. Once you have this proper coverage, there are additional doors that open up and you might be able to increase your business dramatically. So instead of being a small contractor doing a few $100,000 a year in receipts, by having the right insurance, you can start to bid on projects for Lend-Lease, Turner, Tishman, etc., and maybe take on that $1 million project that previously you couldn't even been considered for. All that being said, I have a simple plan for you if your coverage is being rejected. First of all, be honest and open with the person who's rejecting your coverage. Explain to them that you are aware you do not have the proper coverage, but you needed some time to figure it out. Getting a new policy is generally going to take 10 plus days here in New York. It's not going to be something you can fix in 24 hours. So don't overpromise and then underdeliver to the person who's rejecting your policy. If you want to keep the contract, you want to keep them happy. In addition, I would ask them if they are open to negotiating your contract due to the increased premium that you're going to be facing. Also, you want to ask them for an insurance requirement sheet. Oftentimes, in New York, because of all these weird things, companies have very detailed, multi-page documents spelling out their insurance requirements. Now this would be coverage limits, inclusions and exclusions that need to be there, etc. All of that is super important so we can craft you the policy that will comply with your job. Now, after you're done negotiating, talking, discussing with the person who's rejecting your coverage, I highly encourage you go ahead and give me a call. I would be happy to help you, give you kind of a rough idea, estimate as to what this new insurance policy is going to cost you. In addition to that, you want to start to gather all of your insurance paperwork. Now, that would be your signed applications from last year, certificates of insurance for jobs you've done previously. Really, anything insurance related that you can get your hands on quickly and easily is a great thing to do at this time. So now that you've gathered all your paperwork, etc., the time is right to get in touch with me and let me help you get the right insurance policy so you can get back to work.